And we're live. Thanks for tuning in to Higher Living today. This is Lance. I'm joined by my friend, Tim Avers. Tim, what's up, brother?
Not too much, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we're finally getting around doing this. You came on, maybe a year and a half ago, and we've threatened it for a while. I didn't know it would take a global calamity to make it happen, but whatever works. But no, man, I really appreciate you taking time to come on. And like I told you, we went to school together like 11 years, didn't really know each other. I didn't know myself, but I just love what you share. And I love that you're always very thought-provoking. And I think that's a dying art in our country right now. So that's really why I wanted to have you come on in light of everything that's going on, plus you being in Nashville with the recent tornadoes. And yeah, you just have a lot of good insight. So thank you again.
Well, it's always my pleasure, Lance. And like I said, I'm going to try to be able to get my head through those door frames after that intro. That's
Don't go get
cocky. Always a difficult thing. You have to be careful about that. But yeah, so my company that I work for, which I won't name, we haven't idled yet, which is good.
Good.
And we're looking at retention strategies, trying to keep everybody on the payroll.
Yeah.
And which is another good thing. And I know that a lot of companies are already looking at laying people off, which I think is a bad move.
Yeah.
Of course, we've also recently had, then this is all surrounding COVID-19, our old buddy, COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, also we've had the recent Nashville tornadoes, which really haven't had a big impact on us, although they've had a big impact on the Middle Tennessee area.
Yeah.
Because anytime a tornado goes through any area, you have that issue. But the topography of Nashville is such that when those tornadoes go through, there's this one little area that they just love to rumble in. And it's right over in our little section of East Nashville, which is what we now refer to as sort of like the hipster section. It used to be the section where nobody wanted to admit they were from.
Yeah.
But now it was heavily gentrified. And so we've lost a lot of that area, had a lot of damage over on that side. And the great thing is we've got a lot of our power restored. A lot of structures are going back up, and we've still got a lot of damage and some displaced people. But we're gradually getting back to normal.
That's good.
Which of course is what where we like to be, or where we think we are most of the time.
Yeah. I worked in downtown in what was it, 98 or so? When was that one that came?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And
it was 98.
I was actually that day out at Cool Springs, so I wasn't down there in the midst of it, but I remember I worked at First American, which is a bank back in the day, and whatever it's called now, Region, whatever. But I remember people saying like they ran down to the lobby and like the revolving doors were just spinning and paper was going everywhere. It's just odd that it hits downtown. That it doesn't, they don't normally hit metro areas, but it's a couple times in a row.
Well, I think there was a tornado. The first one that they tracked on this map that I've seen was, I think it was in 1933. Mm-hmm. And so apparently there's something about the topography, the layout of the land, where the river is and everything else. It kind of draws them in. If they get that direction, it draws them in down to that area. And the little area that we call our 5 points, which it seems like every city has a 5 points now.
Sure.
But the little area that we call our 5 points, it kind of slid through there and did some damage. But of course, it continued to go out. It was basically, I think, about a 60-mile path of destruction where I think they said up to 6 tornadoes were kind of bouncing up and down through that area. So,
wow.
It's pretty intense. Biggest area was a little bit east of Nashville, where they really had the most damage and the greatest loss of life. But
is that in the Germantown area or whatever it's called?
Well, the Germantown area in Nashville was a highly gentrified industrial area north of in downtown.
Okay.
But north of the capital.
Is that where the Gerst House used to be? Do you remember that place?
It could very well have. They could have had one up there, but I want to say Gerst House is just a little bit more situated between, because they're out of business now.
Gotcha.
It was situated between the stadium and the East Nashville area on the west side of the interstate as it goes through there.
Yeah.
So this was really more up on the north side. And if anybody ever saw the movie Driving Miss Daisy, Miss Daisy was the heiress of a fortune that came about as a result of the Wortham Bag Company. And the Wortham Bag Company was up there off what's now called Rosa Parks Drive.
Okay.
It has been for many years, obviously. But Germantown was basically an area that was just a little bit east of Rosa Parks Avenue before you got up to the highway there. So, we're talking about before you get to Metro Center on Rosa Parks to the right side.
Metro Center.
And Metro Center, yeah.
I forgot. That was dope in the 80s, man.
Oh, very
Middle
big.
school,
very
man.
Big. Absolutely very big. Big movie theater up there.
Yeah.
And some cool stuff. Tried to develop a mall up there to get more mall activity going on the north side of town, and it never really took off. So, yeah. But I've had some damage in both of those places. Yeah, it definitely has. The last 5 years have been just absolutely intense in terms of development.
Yeah.
Big development. One big trend that's been going on in Nashville has been subdividing these lots from left to right and putting up what they call tall skinnies, which are these, open floor plan structures that would be about, half the size or about the full square footage of a normal house, but they're actually take up half the square footage. So you would have a 3-story house, and when these tornadoes went through, they ripped the top story off completely of some of these houses.
Wow.
And because that first floor was on a very open floor plan, there wasn't a lot of support beam in that structure. So it actually collapsed some of the first floors in a lot of these, what they call tall skinnies.
Wow.
Those were seen as investment properties, but they weren't built up. They were built up to current code standards, but some new code standards went through in 2018, kind of like sort of worldwide, I guess. And some of these structures really didn't stand up to those codes. So the next time that we build these buildings back, which we will, because there's insurance money, and we sell them again because people like to have money. There will probably hopefully be a little bit better constructed.
Yeah.
But that all gets into this whole thing. I mean, you could have 2 houses built in the exact same time frame to the exact same standards. One of those houses could get hit by a tornado, and the one next to it is barely touched.
Yeah.
And we live and we try to maintain this illusion of control, this idea that we're in control of things that are going on around us. And we really work hard in our own mind to establish this sort of reality that really has a lot to do with our perception. And it's driven by what we think and the way that we perceive events and lifestyle and all these other things that really only exists inside 3.5 pounds of our gray matter inside of our brain. And so we don't spend a lot of time really looking at things objectively and looking at things from the outside. And really the only opportunity that we have to do that is when we're looking at facts and we're looking at things that we can quantify, really honestly from a scientific standpoint, that we can use math to quantify, because there are very few things in the world that we know are truly real, but we do know that these mathematical concepts and other things kind of hold up.
Yeah.
And so the closer that we get to, analyzing life as much as possible under a mathematical or scientific model, the better off we are. And yet at the same time, we can't lose sight of the fact that when we do that, we're depending largely upon these extremely materialistic concepts that really drive us and result in us, in a lot of cases, not being very happy. And
very
of course,
true, man.
And of course, the purpose of human life is I would say, in a lot of ways, is to attempt to discover some fulfillment.
Yep.
And because the fact is, we like to tell ourselves what's going to happen after this is all over. And we like to tell ourselves whether it's some, miraculous, wonderful, beautiful, eternity, or whether it's just, consciousness ends and we cease to exist. And there's no religion that can tell us for sure what's going to happen. And science is pretty wise about most of the time about saying, yeah, we just don't know. That's not our field.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the things that we can rely on science to do, we should spend time relying on science to do those things, But at the same time, we also have to understand that it's humans that are doing the science.
Mm-hmm.
And that as long as, we have humans doing the science, it's going to be human perspective
Mm-hmm.
that is going to color some of that discovery and some of that belief in what is fact. So that's kind of what's on my mind right now. And then that sort of parlays over into spiritual concepts.
Yeah.
That I am probably far less educated to talk about than you are. But that's kind of where my head is at today. That's my headspace. What we're really looking at right now is just a lot of people need some material help. They need some faith. And I think I'm seeing my faith, interestingly enough, under these circumstances, in the human race being more justified. I'm seeing more people willing to do things. Like in our flood in 2010, we had a big flood in 2010 in Nashville. Devastation of a recent tornado might be on that level. I don't think we're really sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing that we see happen when we have those types of events is how people come out and help people.
Yes.
And we like to live, again, we've got that, however many pounds worth of brain matter between our ears. And we like to believe that we live in that world. We like to believe that the perceptions that we have or the things that we experience are true and incontrovertible. But when it comes right down to it and we need help, or we have the opportunity to help other people, that is what makes us human.
100%, brother.
The stuff that's between our ears is just kind of there to help us guide ourselves. And one thought that I had was, within the last 2 weeks before kind of all this COVID stuff took off, was we're capable of thinking about what we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're capable of thinking about what we're thinking about what we're thinking. And how many layers does that go deep?
Yeah.
It's pretty weird to think about that. But the reality is that we do have these levels of perception where we're able to perceive our own perceptions. That starts to get into the concepts of spirituality. And, do we have a biological part of ourselves that's perceiving the biological, or do we have something that's on a higher level than the biological that's perceiving the biological? I don't know the answer.
It's deep. I mean, like I've read a lot of stuff and, about parallel universes and so many things going on, but I love the point that you made about people starting to help each other. And I did a YouTube video on this yesterday, and I truly believe this. Like, I'm just one that, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I annoy the hell out of people, but I don't care. I just have to choose to find the positive in things. And I do believe that there's positive and all negatives, but, and I hope that's something we learn collectively from this. That's what my video is on yesterday. Some lessons we can learn as humanity from this. We don't need a crisis to learn to treat people with love and compassion and caring. We're so selfish and spoiled, especially in the West. But I love Wavy Gravy is. I don't. You know who Wavy Gravy is?
I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. The hog farm and helped out at Woodstock, and he's got a great documentary. But one of my favorite quotes that he said, he's like, when you get to the very bottom of the human soul, where the knit is slamming into the grit and you're sinking, and you reach down to help someone who's sinking worse than you are, everybody gets high. And we get so caught up in me, and what's missing in my life, without, we're very, very self-centered. And, I don't like any of the things going on. I don't like people getting sick. I don't like people being out of work, but shit's happening. Things are changing. And now is the time that we have to come together. That's why I've been, I don't know, I've started sharing funny things, trying to help spread laughter and stuff in this time. In addition to positive things, I think that's helpful.
Absolutely. I think humor is probably the number one defense mechanism that we have against tragedy.
100%.
And it comes back to this, this idea of gallows humor, of this idea that somebody who's about to die, or somebody who's in a dire circumstance, so close to their own perception and perhaps even the reality of not being alive and in control as much as we think we are in these circumstances. We develop a disease.
Yeah.
Or or some major other event occurs in our lives that we can't control. Something like this that's going on right now is a big example, because it's interesting how it's coming to us culturally. It's arriving to us culturally, step by step. And, when things started happening at the origin point of this disease and infection, we heard about it like it was far away. But guess what? It's not far away. It's not far away, because we are the same people that are the people that experienced this first. And we're the same people as the people that experienced this in Italy or any place else that are going through this and trying to decide, what does this mean for us? For some people, it means, whether they're here or in another country that are at the quote unquote bottom, it means something different for the people that are at the quote unquote top. And yet, hilariously enough, it's the people at the top that panic much worse.
I know, right?
Than the people at the bottom, because people that have experienced this, there are people, and this is one of the first points that I made on when all this stuff started happening, was, that Westerners get this little taste of what it's like in the third world, and they just lose their minds. This is something that people in the third world experience every shortages, rationing, not having enough on a day-to-day basis is something that people experience in the third world. And then on top of it, the thing that we really want to deny is that it happens amongst us every single day. There are people for which this is the norm. This is how they live.
Man, I've been living like not even paycheck to paycheck the last year. Like, I've been trying to get through. Like, I faced a lot of adversity and some jobs that just weren't right and didn't go the right way. I mean, I've been up again. I've been 7 months behind on my mortgage, man. Like, I've been there. Like, I was getting foreclosure notices. Like, this is kind of helping things out. But, and it's taught me to be ultra present and to be super grateful for what I do have, and I think that we're just collectively spoiled. We're collectively spoiled. And I've been on both sides of it. And I got two kids. I got an 18-year-old and 6-year-old. They've experienced the great life, and they've also experienced a lot of lack, and I don't know why I've had to go through this, but the more that I see things changing, I feel as if in some way I was prepared for it, because I'm supposed to help in some way. When people, we love to control things, we fight like hell to control everything in our lives. And, the time is going to come, whether you like it or not. We're all going to fall on our face. We're all going to be pushed to the edge of life. And that is when we have the choice to act. That is the only time we can do something about it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And, there's this sense of panic that we're talking about a lot. We're talking about ideas like panic buying, or, doing these other things. We see this at the grocery store when the entire, everything in the meat department is wiped out. And to me, it's fascinating because, you look at these lunch meat packages, these things filled with sodium, and when these are all gone, when they're literally all gone off the shelf, when in normal circumstances, we know what happens. The grocery store rotates these. Some of these get bought, some of these don't get bought. And that doesn't get bought, guess what they do? They throw it in a dumpster. It doesn't go to benefit anybody in a lot of cases. I have a friend who runs a food bank in Westmoreland, Tennessee. They get some of the food that expires, quote unquote, at the grocery store. But in circumstances like this, what's happening? There's no expired food. That food is going in somebody's freezer. Somebody's putting lunch meat right now in their freezer. That's just going to sit in there and get freezer burn, and they're going to have to throw it out in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But people are doing that, and people are not realizing and thinking forward. What happens to the people at the food bank? USDA, for example, is an organization that in the food bank, I don't know if you've been to one recently, but in the food bank, this is how it works.
I haven't been to one ever. But
yeah, so you've got half of the food bank, or a part of the food bank, that is just basically expired food. Anybody can come in and they can get up to a bag or so much per week. So when the flip side of it is, you have USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, obviously. A certain percentage of the meat production, what have you, that comes out of certain plants is done for processing for USDA. Mm-hmm. So this meat goes into these food banks. So the people who go in and they use the food bank, they have a card or some kind of identification that says you can get so much meat this week, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So they literally get it. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be okay for meat, but what about everything else? Mm-hmm. Everything else that everybody's grabbing and hoarding up right now. Mm-hmm. The people who are at the bottom, quote unquote, the people who are not in a financially fortunate position are going to be, it's not going to be rationing for them. They just may not have it on their shelf. And so, that's again, like one of these larger issues, one of these sorts of issues relating to, the totality of us as human beings, where we intersect with our fellow man, and our fellow man is not exactly like us. Our fellow person is different from us and has a different set of circumstances. We get freaked out when somebody says there's going to be a virus, and you're going to have to stay home for 2 weeks or 2 months or however long. And we all of a sudden run to the grocery store and we buy up as many packages of toilet paper as we can get our hands on, and sanitary wipes and everything else. And then we're so uninformed, we start flushing those wipes down the toilet, and they clog our toilets, and mm-hmm. It's the apocalypse. Another thing I said today was, you can't call 911 for a plumber. Yeah. Like the plumber's not going to come out and fix your clogged septic system because you've got wet wipes down your septic system. Mm-hmm. But these things that we're all about, this illusion of control, when the truth of the matter is, any one of us can get hit by a car at any minute. Any one of us can have, brother. We can have these big viral infections come along that impact the globe, that impact everybody in the world. But we can have a lot of different things happen to us. And we talk about these immutable concepts, like the immutable. When we grew up in a particular church denomination, and that particular church denomination said, you only have sex after you get married, and then you get married, and that's the person that you're going to have intimate relations with for the rest of your life, and you're never going to split ever. Mm-hmm. Nothing's ever going to change. Your commitment to each other. Well, the fact is, when one of your parents dies, that can radically alter your perspective mm-hmm. on the world. Yeah. And that can change your perception and your understanding of the world so much that maybe you don't want to be with a person you've been with for 25 years. Mm-hmm. So the person who's not on that, the person who is on that, the person who has a parent pass, they are going to be impacted. And the person who doesn't have the parent pass, the partner of the person who has the parent pass, is going to be impacted in a completely different way, but a completely same way in a certain sense. That relationship breaks up. Kids deal with parents getting divorced because of these sorts of circumstances, all this kind of stuff happening. And we get really upset. And we get really upset because we had this idea of, well, you're supposed to be there forever. This person is supposed to be there forever. And we think that because we have this illusion of control that tells us another human being belongs to us, and they don't.
It's attachment, man.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is a form it's a form of materialism.
Attachment keeps us from God, from source, whatever God is to anyone else. Attachment and expectations are our two biggest problems, especially in the West.
Yeah, very much so.
Expect other people to treat us a certain way. And attachment. Yeah. And there's going to a lot. That is a change that's coming. And I love what you're saying about this. And I do feel like deep down, and I'm starting to see it happen locally and around me, people starting to give, just randomly mm-hmm. starting to give. And all these people that have hoarded shitloads of food, I hope we don't come to a bartering society, but the bigger, as concerning as a virus is, I was a finance major. I'm more concerned with the economic fallout. We're a consumer-based
mm-hmm.
government's talking about sending out checks. Like what the we're printing money out of thin air anyway. It's a fiat currency.
Yeah.
Globally, nobody wants to buy our treasuries, and how can we? Everybody have become so reliant on the government to fix things, and I think this is going to force us all to wake up and be humans and love one another and share and help each other.
That Lance, that's definitely the way that I hope it goes. And one thing that's very interesting is this whole idea of sending out people checks. This idea comes from a pre-9/11 mindset. And the thing that's interesting about this time is that when we send out those checks, because I remember George Bush II said, hey, take this money. I remember the first thing that happened after 9/11 was he went on TV and he made this address and he said, everybody go out to restaurants. Mm-hmm. Well, what are we going to do with these checks? The restaurants are all closed.
Not only that, but think about how bad porch pirates are at Christmas. People will be jumping mailboxes like crazy.
Yeah.
And I really don't want it to go that way. And I'm not painting a negative light, but I think we need to be aware, I just sense a collective fear and everybody's having fun and posting jokes and not having to go to work for a while or working from home, but this is going to get old quick and panic's going to set in. I mean, I'm frankly concerned. I mean, think about all the addicts out there. Think about people that are losing everything that are not I hope it doesn't come to that, but I'm afraid of a lot of suicide, man. A lot of people are not equipped to deal with this kind of change. And you're right. We resist change, So we cling to what we can control.
We really do. And just a couple things on the point that I wanted to raise earlier about materialism and spirituality. I came to a conclusion not too long ago, and I'm sure many, many, many thousands of years ago, much wiser men than me came to these conclusions. But, we don't just hoard physical objects and things as a part of our materialistic approach. We also hoard experience and sensation. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say that we all need to turn into Stoics and that we need to do any kind of chastisation or whatever you want to call it, flagellating ourselves flagellating the self, the physical, like the monks did many years ago. But when we start to look at the perspective that there are physical things, there are sensations, and then there are experiences, and these three pillars are sort of really the pillars of materialism. And those things start to get pulled away from us. And right now it's happening first and foremost with the normal pillars that we expect to always be there, the physical things, mm-hmm. the ability to go down to the supermarket and pick up, virtually anything that you can imagine that's come from almost any part of the world. I think about fruits that are in and out of season. We don't think about fruits that are in and out of season because we just buy them. They come on the shelf. You just get them. Then you have the sensation, the idea of the human sexuality or physical experience that's pleasurable, and then you have the idea of just this larger experience, travel, these types of things. When all this stuff started coming to bear with COVID-19, I started thinking about, well, gosh, I've made this plan. The first time my children will ever have been out of the country, we were planning on going to Italy this summer. Italy. Mm-hmm. So Italy, of course, is hit enormously hard. And I scraped and saved and, every dime, every penny that I could to start putting into this trip so that we could do this, so I could do this for my children. But that in and of itself is also an aspect of materialism. Mm-hmm. When we start to strip those things away, we start to think, what can we hold on to? And that illusion of control begins to slip. And when the illusion of control starts to slip, we have kind of two places that we can go. We can either go toward extreme pessimism, which I think is a lot of what we're seeing right now. This idea we're going to shut down an entire state. I think that's extremely pessimistic. Or we go to a place that says maybe the things that we have been prioritizing for so long are not really where it's at. Mm-hmm. Maybe the things that we have said are so important. I always use the example because I'm 45, and I see literally a lot of guys my age chasing women who are half their age. They're doing the old classic midlife crisis. They've got to have this, this one particular type of car, or they've got to live in this zip code, or their kids have to go to this particular school or whatever. And they're sort of chasing that illusion of control, the illusion of, oh, I've got Viagra and now I'm immortal,
Yeah.
Just because certain organs continue to behave like they did when you were 16 doesn't mean you're going to live forever.
Yeah.
Regardless of what kind of chemicals you're having to pump into your body to make that happen. The fact is, we all know we're all going to pass. At some point, we're not going to be on this plane anymore.
Nobody's getting out of here alive.
No. And we're all going to experience something that is different from what we know now.
Yeah.
And, or we're not going, or even if we don't experience anything, even if we withdraw all of the biological hardware that we use to experience the universe, if that's all withdrawn and there's nothing else for us to experience with it, it's still going to be an enormous change.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that we have to do, and I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people in a lot of different places about this idea, is that we have to start looking at, even though we may have all these major religions and we may have all these minor religions, and they may all reveal something, some part of some truth. I think the thing that we have to start getting back to is just human compassion, because the thing that we know is here are people, and the thing that we know that we are is the same. Mm-hmm. And the more that we're able to get a grasp on that and project goodwill and positivity and energy out through the rest of our species, I think the better off that we'll be in toto.
I agree, brother. I agree. And, I mentioned him a lot. He's probably one of my greatest teachers. He passed in December, Ram Dass. But, as humans, we try to maximize our highs and minimize our lows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that speaks to addiction. That speaks to everything, whether it's, addicted to some substance or addicted to stuff or whatever. But we try as humans to maximize our highs and avoid any kind of lows and adversity. And we're all being faced with reality right now. Like I see so much disappointment, and it's a natural human response, but I really do hope that, that we can just, and it's not the government. Everyone's looking, like I tuned out the news, and I'm not really political. I do vote, but I do my research, and I only vote on people that I feel align with me. My grandfather stormed Normandy wave 2. So like, I respect the right to vote, but a lot of it's garbage, man. And we're looking, everyone's looking for someone else to bail them out. And it is time that we get back to being human beings and giving love and compassion.
I think there's a lot that we can do in a collective sense. I think that we do have tremendous opportunities that we can avail ourselves of as the result of being a part of this, what do we call it, the social contract. Mm-hmm. We do, and in the present moment, have this social contract that exists with ourselves all chipped up and carved out into these little geographic boundaries and these little political boundaries that we call nations or states or whatever we call them. And we try to work collectively within those to make circumstances better for people. But the perspective that we have on that, again, is it's a material perspective. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to heal people in the way that people have to ultimately be healed. And I think that while we should do the best that we can as individuals within our community to help take care of those that are less fortunate around us, we also deal with a reality that we do dedicate, most of us, at least 10% of our incomes, if that's a measure of value of any kind, into this sort of collective effort. Mm-hmm. And we have these artificial divisions that we say we have: liberal and conservative, Democrat, Republican, whatever the case may be, where we say, oh, well, our plan is better. No, our plan is better. Your plan is wrong. You're a bad person because you don't have the same plan that we have. Well,
we focus on our differences.
The ultimate reality is that, there is a big pile of money out there. One of the things that I really kind of like about what's going on right now is that we do see, I see marketing emails and everything from all these different point of sale companies, which is what I deal with point of sale companies to an extent. And the thing that's interesting is they're not out there saying, oh, buy our stuff. You have to buy our stuff right now. Mm-hmm. The thing that's interesting that they're saying is, we know that you have to look out after the folks that work for you. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, let us help you with resources. Let us help you find resources that your staff members, that your employees, that the people taking food to tables at restaurants, and the people delivering and the people doing all this other stuff, resources that they can plug into. You've got people working at auditoriums and stadiums and studios and all these other places where musical events are going on that they're not going to have. Many of whom live paycheck to paycheck, and they're potentially not going to have an income for the next little while. So we do have the opportunity to avail ourselves of resources we've built in this big state, But at the same time, that state in and of itself can only go so far. And what do we do when we get to the point where somebody says, which is it's a point we've been at for probably 50 years, where they say, I've got everything I need, mm-hmm. and I've got everything I want, but beyond that, what do I have? And
I did that in my video yesterday. Part of the lessons, how much, we need to learn the difference between needs and wants. And mm-hmm. as opposed to getting that extra car to play around with or an extra house, we need to start thinking, what can we, if you're blessed enough to have those resources, maybe it's time we start helping others.
Yeah. There was a story told at Lipscomb where we attended school. I think it was when we were in college, about a guy who came to Lipscomb. He was from South America. Mm-hmm. And he came up to study, and he had a host family that was a part of our administration, and they were driving out one day, and he saw this structure on the side of the road, and he was like, oh, those are some nice apartments. And the host family said, well, those aren't apartments, that's a storage space. And the guy said, well, what do you mean a storage space? And they said, well, this is where you put your stuff when you've got too much stuff.
Sickening.
And he was just dumbfounded by that.
It's sickening, dude. I've seen the post on it. Yeah.
It was amazing to him, because he was like, well, I mean, and that's the whole thing is we look at examples in the Bible, for example, in the first century church, as we're told, this idea that people shared according to the need of other people. Mm-hmm. People who had a lot of stuff were willing to share according to the needs that other people had. And people will also that are church people will say, well, that's Karl Marx. Well, no, it's the first century church talked about doing exactly the same thing. Talked about collectivism, not in a political sense, but in the community sense. And we're really focused on have to have this nice church building or whatever within our churches, and have to have
every church needs a gym.
You're right.
You got to bring people to Jesus. You got to have a gym.
Right. You got to have a band. You have to have a band.
Oh,
got to have a band.
Yeah, all these things are really important, especially considering there's one on every corner. Yeah, right. How much is too much? I mean, and we grew up in the same thing, and I'm not against look, it's taken me almost to this stage of my life to see the beautiful lessons taught in the Bible, but it also took me going out and studying the Tao Te Ching and Bhagavad Gita and the Quran. Man, these messages are the same. We as humans get it threatens our identity. We look down on everyone else and think that what we think is the best and the only way. But these messages are consistent, and there's a time that I remember getting up and walking out with my family, walking out of the church service. They're talking about burning the mortgage. They're trying to get extra collections so they could burn all, raise money to pay off the building. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, this is what's important. I don't know. This is collectively, and I'm not trying to go on a rant. Clearly I am when I say things like I'm not trying to go on a rant, but just being honest.
Absolutely.
It's just frustrating, and there's so much good that is done. I'm not against it, but this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call unlike anything that anyone alive has ever seen.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a huge opportunity for people to start viewing, the space that we occupy in the cosmos, not just the visible universe, not just what we can see with the Hubble telescope is fantastic as a lot of the stuff that we can see with radio telescopes and everything is out in the universe. But there's this whole dimension to what is, and I just refer to that for shorthand as being like the cosmos.
Yeah,
which I see as being everything that can be seen or not be seen, inside and outside of the perceptible universe.
Yeah.
There's such an opportunity to start plugging people into that, and to get people to really realize, we're just this. If you look at us from 100 million miles away, we're just this speck.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we are everything we know. Our experience impacts us just in tremendous ways. But the more opportunity that we have to look outside of ourselves and to understand that the person sitting next to us on a bus, or the person who is in another part of the world, whose name they'll never know our names, we'll never know their names. Maybe it's a person 300 years ago. We're all the same. We're all having the same experience.
We're all connected, man.
We are all one and the same. And the more that we can do to recognize that, and I've seen it in the last couple of days in grocery stores. It's super weird. I've gone for probably 2 or 3 years without having people just start talking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go into these places where everybody is being told, no, you can't communicate with each other. No, you have to have social distance.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to, do all these things. The thing that's incredible is the hunger that you see in people's faces now.
Yeah.
And it's that people want to talk. People want to be able to communicate. What we have on the internet, talking to each other, although we can do it globally, and it's incredible. People are hungry for that human contact.
They are, man.
And people are reaching out and they're saying, you know what? I am going to stay 6 feet away from you right now, but how are you doing? How are you really doing?
Yeah.
And they're not asking the question in a casual touch and go sort of way. They really want to know. And part of it is they're just so hungry that they want to be known too.
Yeah.
They want to have that intimate contact that is not something that's for sale.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can go and buy. It's something that we have to build through community and through love for each other.
And I say it like we live in the most, we have such an opportunity. I mean, this week, literally, this podcast will be heard, I can assure you, in England, France, Australia, Africa, Hawaii. Like, those are places I know it will be heard. Like, like, there's people, like, we live in a time, we're so spoiled and so blessed, like, we literally have the opportunity to reach people across the globe. And I think this slowdown, you see the changes, like the canal. I had my friend Angela on yesterday. I'm going to post the show later, but she has family in Italy, and like the canal in Venice is like clear and dolphins are swimming in it. And shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is, there's always good and bad. It's just how, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. It's true.
Yeah. And I think that the term the idea that you just introduced into this conversation for the first time, slowing down. Yeah. We are so hesitant to slow down because it's kind of like we think if we slow down, we're going to be like that plate, and that plate that we're all those plates we're trying to spin, they're going to fall to the ground, and just the whole world is going to shatter. Yeah. But the reality is, when we just take the time to pause and be mindful and look around and be a little bit more intentional. When people practice Tai Chi or these other martial arts disciplines, one of the techniques that they will have is just to slow everything down and to practice at a slower rate than you would really perform it if you were really going to have to use a martial art or something else like that. And the idea of slowing things down, it's maybe training us for the type of awakening that we really need to have. And we know that there are forces out there that don't want us to do that. that are just perfectly content with us working as hard as we possibly can to draw as much into our bank accounts that we can
To
so
exist,
we
to
can push it
separate.
out.
Yes.
Yeah, so that we can push it out so that we can do the things that we quote unquote think we need to do and buy the things that we think that we need to have in order to do what we ultimately just end up calling surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody's seen the meme. We weren't put here to survive. We were put here to gain a greater understanding, or we arrived here by whatever means.
Thrive.
By whatever means we arrived here. We got here. We're here now, and we have the opportunity to get something both beneficial for us and also beneficial for everybody else. And I've learned more in the smallest experiences of kindness than I'll ever learn out of a book or in a college class. Human compassion is one of the most powerful things in the entire world. And that's if I wanted there to be a takeaway from the conversation we're having today, it's just that we've just all got to slow down and show each other a little bit more compassion. I
agree, brother. I mean, I'm out and about, and I've tried to put that in my videos. Like, these people are just like, even at the store, like they're hurriedly wiping down carts. Like these people that normally the great portion of our society looks down on people that work at a grocery store. Really?
It's true.
Really? We better fucking be thankful as hell. Not just now, always, because these people, like we take everything for granted. We get pissed off. We go to the store and they don't have what we want. Really?
Right. Yeah.
Really?
And it's not that they don't have what we want. They just don't have the brand of it that we want.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. God forbid.
They don't have the, they don't have, you don't have my specific flavor of 90-second rice.
Yeah.
And that's going to crush somebody's day.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever forget the first time that, I was just being nice, just being like a normal human being.
The first time you're ever being
supposed
nice?
to be. Well, it wasn't the first time I was ever being nice, but we all come with our own baggage. And
I know,
a
right?
lot of us do
100%.
things that are nice, and we think, "Oh, I'm doing something that's nice," but we're really doing it to benefit ourselves. And one time, this happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago in a grocery store, and I just asked the clerk how they were doing.
Yeah.
And this person, I think, realized that I wasn't just making casual conversation, that I really actually cared about them.
Yep.
And that's not to, pat myself on the back or to virtue signal or anything like that. That's just simply to say, the more that we actually care about people, the more energy they're going to have to give back to their world, to like these ads where people smile at each other, you know, that's really true. When we really do care about other people that are in our sphere of influence, that are around us, and we can really help them understand that we generally do have a real compassion for them, and we really do care about how their day is going, there's an energy, and I'm talking about a tangible energy that is passed back and forth between two people, and I've felt it.
100%.
Not going to
give.
Not going to get all new agey or anything, but I have felt that energy when I share with somebody my real compassion for them, and they realize this person actually cares about me. This person actually, that when they ask me how am I doing, like they look me in the eye, and you get that eye contact that we so rarely make anymore. Looking at a person eye to eye, because that's so scary. Are they going to accept us, or are they going to reject us? That's mostly what we're concerned about. And so a lot of us just don't make eye contact anymore. And we have to look people in the eye and tell them we love them, or we care about them. And we need to stop
and practicing gratitude, man. Like you said.
Absolutely.
I remember being at a Hay House speaking event, and some of my greatest teachers were like Hay House speakers. I got to meet Wayne Dyer there. But I remember being in an auditorium in Atlanta. I think it was 2012. Probably like 2,000 people in there, and it was a break. There's the teleprompter always, and everyone cleared out at the break. And I was like, you know what? I saw the lady. She's like a stenographer, My mom used to do that on the side, like court report. Like there's somebody that's sitting up front that is making, and how many people need the words on the screen? Not many, but do you think anyone ever thanked them? I took the time, I went over, I was like, thank you for what you're doing. Like it caught her way off guard. And I try to do that on a more regular basis. You know, like we expect things to be, we expect stores to have what we need. We expect shit to go our way, but there's always someone behind the scenes that is doing a thankless job. Make the time to stop, be human, to thank them, to smile. We don't know what the power of a smile and a kind word can do, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One thing in closing, but, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, go ahead. Knock yourself out.
I was going to, are you able to read your post that you did today, the quarantine guide to the outside?
Oh, the quarantine guide. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I can probably do that. I'm not sure how I do that with this app. Are we still on?
Yeah, we're on. I mean, I can read it. I didn't know, because you're on your phone. I didn't know if you could.
Well, hey, yeah. Let if you don't mind wrapping up with it. If you want to wrap up with it, that's fine.
Yeah,
I would love to have you read it.
Yeah, man. And I don't know. It's just great advice. So, the quarantine guide to the outside, 3/21/2020. It's okay to go outside. If you're well and you're going outside, wash your hands before you go and upon return. If you're not well, see if somebody can bring you what you need. If you're not well, nobody can bring you what you need and you really need it, please cover your mouth and nose with a mask when close to others. 5, enjoy being outside. Did you know that UV light kills viruses? Yes, I'm outside all the time. That's very powerful. 6, if you're not going to be in close proximity to anybody, that's pretty much it. 7, if you encounter someone, wave and ask how they're doing from a minimum distance of 6 feet. 8, if you're running an errand that requires you to go shopping, use wipes or hand sanitizer while on the go. 9, if you don't see something that you need on your trip, politely ask someone from the store where it is or if there is any of that thing left. 10, if you don't find something you need, don't panic. I love this one. Try to find something close. If you can't and you're well, try another store, then go home. Whether you're sick or well, something you can't find is probably something you can live without. You can always try again tomorrow. And you said, if you're sick and can't find something you truly need, message me or another friend. We should be able to pick it up for you and put it on your doorstep. And that, man, that's what we all need to do right now. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, you're more than welcome.
So what do you got planned the rest of the weekend?
I'm just going to relax a little bit. I always visit my parents.
Good.
On Sunday. I've got some coffee for Mom.
Excellent.
That I picked up at the store. So I'm going to get that over to them. We almost always have a Sunday meal.
Good.
And then I'm going to start looking at what else I need to do to be prepared to work on Monday, and just try to lay low and keep things cool and just be as serene as possible.
Good, man. Man, I really am grateful. Like I said, hopefully you can come back on without some other global crisis happening. I love your insight, and I appreciate it, and really grateful for your time and your wisdom. And yeah, man, let's all come together and help each other. It's the only way we're going to make it through this.
Lance, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to be on Higher Living.
You got it, brother. Take care, man.
Right.
Stay safe.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.